Our podcast sponsor today is strategytraining.com. If you want to strengthen your strategy skills, you can get the overall approach used in well-managed strategy studies. It's a free download, and you can go to firmsconsulting.com/overall approach. That's firmsconsulting with an s.com/overall approach. And if you're looking to advance your career and need to update your resume, you can get a McKinsey and BCG winning resume template as a free download at www.firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF. That's www.firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF.
I'm sure many of you have heard the term business judgment either when receiving feedback or even getting a decline or even getting an offer from a consulting firm. And one of the things I've noticed is that business judgment has many different interpretations and many different definitions, either when delivered by the consulting firm or from the candidate in terms of, when he's sifting through the feedback he or she has received. So what this podcast wants to do is maybe explain the term business judgment and explain to you what comprises business judgment and how it affects your consulting, either a reject or a acceptance offer. So business judgment, let's start by breaking that down. I think by the mere fact that we have the word judgment in there, we can infer that it means the interpretation of something whereby not enough facts are available. Let me just explain what that means. So assume you're presented with some data, and obviously in the case you're presented with incomplete data. And based on the data you presented, you've got to, for lack of a better word, guess or use that data you presented with to draw conclusions about something where you don't have enough information to draw conclusions about it. Because if you had all of the information, well, then you wouldn't have to draw conclusions in the first place, so you wouldn't have to determine the impact because it'll already be outlined for you. So business judgment, you have to be very careful in the definition. The definition is using your existing knowledge and tools for analyzing problems to take information given to you where not complete information is given to you, not where the most accurate information is given to you, and then use the knowledge you have to fill in the gaps to arrive at an answer. Then the part that's most important is judgment. You have to make a call on something where not enough information or not the right information is available. It could be anything like, estimating the number of Starbucks in the United States. You don't have that information at hand, and you need to pretty much guess. Now, there are three pools of skills or assets, for lack of a better word, that allows you to have strong business judgment. I'll talk you through all three. The first one, I think, is just being well-read. People who are well-read, by and large, tend to know more than other people. And because they tend to know more, the kinds of leaps of logic that they need to make would be less. Being well-read helps your business judgment. That's one side. The other one is just work experience. The more work experience you have allows you to draw more conclusions. For example, we once had someone who worked as a driver. I think it was with a healthcare company. And we're doing this transportation case, and because of his role as a driver when he was a student, he could draw conclusions about toll fees, time to offload, time to upload trucks, and so on. The other one is just being well-traveled. You may not have worked, you may not be well-read, but by having traveled around so much, you have been exposed to different things. Maybe, just by traveling around to Thailand and Cambodia, you can make better inferences about how business is done in developing economies, what is the disposable income, how people shop, what kind of size of purchases they make, and so on. Now, if you are well-read, if you are well-traveled, if you have a lot of experiences, they all contribute to your business judgment, but in different ways. Clearly, if you are well-read, you have more facts, right? So you're drawing on those facts to be able to apply to your business judgment. The more well-traveled you are, you're drawing on facts as well, but you're drawing in different facts. Another word for being well-read is being book-smart. I'm sure you've heard that many times. Someone who's book-smart, they read a lot, but they don't have a lot of practical experience. That doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you can draw conclusions, you can make business judgment. We've had candidates who I would say are not very well read, haven't really traveled much, but because of the amount of working experience they've had, they can draw very logical conclusions. And I've had candidates who are not well read, haven't worked a lot, but have traveled extensively. Like over 30 countries throughout their life. And because of the experiences they've had, they're able to draw logical conclusions. Now, think of book smarts, experience, and travel as additional pieces of information. It doesn't give you all the information to fill the gap with regards to the conclusion you need to draw, but it gives you enough information. Now, once you have that information coming from one of those three sources, you need to actually use logic to take that information and extract it to get your correct answer. So whether your source of business judgment comes from traveling a lot or reading a lot, it doesn't matter, because you still need to have analytical skills to take that information and extract it. Now, some people may tell me, and I've heard this, where they'll say, look, the reason I know this answer is because I read it somewhere. Now, if you read it somewhere and you know the answer, you're not really showing judgment, because judgment by its definition means being able to draw a conclusion from something where you don't know the answer and don't have sufficient information. So if you're well read and you know the answer, then you're not really showing business judgment. You just happen to know the answer for that question. So don't confuse the two. And a lot of people ask me how to improve their business judgment. I always tell people read a lot. That's the easiest one, right? You're not going to have time to travel a lot in 5 months to gain knowledge in that way. You're not going to have time to work a lot in 5 months as well. So that's why reading by default becomes the only option to build business judgment. And the other thing you have to understand is that once you've read a lot, you also have to then build your ability to take the information you have, kernels of that information, and be able to extract this picture, which is where the analytical problem-solving tools or the estimation techniques we have come in useful. And if you've been through analytical techniques for estimating, you know the way we break down estimations into 5 steps. And you can then withdraw that information that you've read about somewhere and use it as a basis to estimate something. But I think the key thing you have to understand is business judgment is the ability to take facts that are incomplete and using your knowledge and your problem-solving skills to take that small pieces of information and build it up to be able to come up with a logical conclusion. And you know that consulting firms are looking for people who have strong business judgment. You don't want to be one of those people whereby someone asks you how many Starbucks there are in the United States and you say something like 49 or 79. I mean, that's just illogical. That shows a lack of business judgment. Also, you're not even showing any judgment at all. You're just guessing. You're not logically solving the problem. So always remember this when you get the feedback about business judgment. Business judgment means you taking incomplete information, using your own knowledge to draw a conclusion or to complete an analysis. You get business judgment as a result of either being well-read, well-traveled, or having a lot of experiences, either work or otherwise. And then with those 3 sources of knowledge, you apply a logical problem-solving process to arrive at an answer. There's no other way to define business judgment, but always remember, if you know the answer, it's not business judgment. In fact, I would say that it's one of the reasons why consulting firms don't hire people who are experts in an industry. I mean, I've seen this many times where someone would come up to me and say, Michael, I've spent 11 years in the oil and gas industry, I know everything about it. Why wouldn't McKinsey or BCG hire me? And I always point out to them, well, you may know a lot about oil and gas, but the danger with hiring someone like that is that they will rely on their knowledge. And the point is, no 2 consulting problems are the same. So consulting firms are looking for people who can apply business judgment, who, when they don't know the answer, they don't fall flat. But when they have some information, they can apply some of the knowledge they have, superimpose a rigorous problem-solving approach, and arrive at an answer. So don't obsess about knowing everything in the sector, because it's irrelevant. What you should worry about is thinking, do I have enough experiences? Am I well read enough about business, about accounting concepts, about what's happening in the sector to be able to infer the information provided to me and then be able to use an analytical problem-solving technique to arrive at a logical answer? Business judgment is very important, but always remember it is about your interpretation of something, not your guess, your interpretation. If you are able to guess the answer correctly, you don't have strong business judgment. You're just good at guessing. And business judgment is not something you pick up quickly. It's not something you learn overnight in a week or a weekend. Business judgment takes time to develop. I've seen a lot of candidates we've had who go into intense MBA programs like Harvard and INSEAD and so on, and their business judgment improves dramatically because of the amount of work they need to go through and the pace of the work they need to go through. So always remember that business judgment comes from developing a process of learning, right? A process of thinking. Always remember it's about 3 sources of knowledge and analytical process. You need the sources of knowledge and the analytical process. If you just have the sources of knowledge and you guess, you're not showing business judgment. You have to infer something by using an analytical problem-solving process.
As we wrap up, today's podcast is sponsored by strategytraining.com. If you want to strengthen your strategy skills, you can get the overall approach used in well-managed strategy studies as a free download. Go to firmsconsulting.com/overall approach. And if you're looking to advance your career and need to update your resume, you can get a McKinsey and BCG winning resume template example as a free download at www.firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF.